You've heard stories about crazy stalkers, right? But what about a psychotic stalker who also happens to be a mermaid? That's exactly what happens to the poor protagonist, whose life is completely destroyed by a creature he once believed was his friend. In a distant memory, a woman hugs the protagonist tenderly as he says goodbye. The young man feels her touch on his face, peacefully accepting his final fate. The sensation of drowning wakes him up in fright, making the boy scream. It was all a nightmare, and he finds himself back in his usual lonely reality. The scene changes to a doctor's office, where a voice comments that it has been a while since he last appeared. Then the doctor asks how things are going for him at the university. She then suggests that they continue the conversation from where they left off last time. But because of the rain, she writes that today's session will be done on paper. At that moment, the doctor asks him to tell more about the friend he mentioned earlier. The protagonist reflects that, although it may sound crazy, his first friend was a mermaid. Seeing a painting on the office wall, he starts to remember the past. In a flashback, the boy runs along the beach, shouting that one of his comrades was caught. He looks excited, wanting to know what will happen next in this game. The little one reached 3,000 meters deep in the sea. Smiling, he warns the divers not to worry about him. And so Haishang safely reached the cave, passing through the rocky entrance. But as he stops at the entrance, the boy falls silent, sensing something strange in the air. Suddenly, he hears a noise coming from inside and gets scared by the sound. The boy realizes that someone else is there, as he hears the voice of a crying child. He hesitates, wondering if he should go back and tell the adults what he heard. But curiosity speaks louder, and he enters the darkness to investigate. The scene cuts to a funeral, where a woman cries over the loss of her husband. In a corner, the protagonist weeps, for that was his father. Back in the cave, Haishang approaches the person and asks if she is okay. Shocked, he shines a light on the place and sees a mermaid's tail trapped in a fishing net. Looking up, he finds a crying girl, realizing she is a mermaid. The creature suddenly faints, and the boy runs away from there completely terrified. The scene shifts to a beautiful day in the ocean, with the sun shining brightly on the clear waters. The mermaid, now free from the net, emerges on the water's surface, looking confused. Haishang is on a nearby rock, holding the net that had trapped her, watching her. He is happy that she woke up and explains that he gave her his shirt because she looked cold. With a smile on his face, the boy asks if she is really a mermaid. She confirms, and he gets excited, promising to keep the secret and asking to be her friend. Haishang then lies down and tries to ask why she was crying, but gives up halfway. The boy asks her name, but the mermaid replies that she doesn't have one. He becomes thoughtful about her answer. Then he suggests the name Yun Hai, and the girl repeats it, a little surprised. He explains that the name means sun and sea, and she ends up agreeing. Haishang extends his hand to her, saying, "It's a pleasure to meet you." Seeing her confusion, the boy says, "You just need to take my hand." They shake hands, and he explains that it's for them to get along well. The doctor asks if he wasn't afraid of her, and the young man says that on his island, there were no other children his age. That's why that mermaid friend became the most precious person to him. The time they spent together was simply unforgettable for the boy. At another moment, the boy says, "I'm about to throw up from so much nausea." He spits out the food, complaining that everything she brings is salty. Unlike her sweetness, Yunhei becomes sad and says that if she were human, she would bring something tasty for him too. Desperate, Haishang asks her not to say something like that, leaving the girl confused. He then reveals that he actually wanted to be a mermaid like her, just to be able to swim well. The boy confesses that, unlike his appearance, he is actually afraid of water. At that moment, Yunhei looks at him and asks why he is so afraid of entering the sea. He then tells her that his father died in a boat accident. With a sad expression, the boy asks what will happen to him now. The mermaid then asks if he would still be afraid if they went into the water together. He hesitates at the edge, asking if she will save him, and the mermaid assures him that she won't let him drown. Haisung enters the water, and even though she offers help, he says it's okay, but suddenly something pulls him down, as if hands were grabbing him from the bottom. A horrible memory comes to mind, and the boy panics, shouting, "I'm scared." In shock, he returns to reality and clings to the mermaid, completely desperate with the situation. The two are face to face, and she asks worriedly if he is feeling well. Still trembling a lot, the boy says, "Please, hold my hand." Their hands join underwater, and she helps him float safely. He gets startled as he floats, but Yunhai squeezes his hand, assuring him that everything is fine. Calmly, the mermaid asks him to look, trying to divert his attention from fear. She then tells him that he is swimming, showing that he has overcome his fear. In the deepest part, she asks if he is afraid, but the boy denies it, since she is holding him. The mermaid reveals that she also doesn't have a father, and the two comfort each other for having one another. Back in the present, he writes that he was sent to his uncle's house after his mother got hurt. In another memory, he says goodbye on the beach, warning that it might be the last time they see each other. The boy explains that there is no sea in Seoul, and Yunhei warns him about a slippery rock. He agrees to get closer, but his face shows the sadness of the imminent farewell. With a trembling voice, he says that despite everything, she will always be his best friend. As a farewell gift, the boy places his toy submarine in the water. He shouts that he is leaving the toy for her and that she should go get it quickly. 6 years have passed, and the protagonist, now in high school, remembers his farewell. In the bathroom, he gets irritated, thinking that something is wrong with him for not forgetting her. Then he goes to the sink and starts washing his hands to try to cool his head. The boy splashes water on his face, hoping to drive away the memories for good, but suddenly ghostly hands grab him from inside the sink, leaving him terrified. He screams desperately, telling the thing to let him go while trying to break free from its grip. A figure emerges from the darkness, and he is startled to hear a voice calling his name. With a gentle touch, the person asks him to hold her hands, like in the old days. Terrified, the memory of that touch makes him remember when he held the mermaid's hand. He can't believe what he sees and whispers her name, wondering if it's Yoon-hae. Then his hands are pulled, and Yoon-hae herself emerges from the water right in front of him. She hugs him tightly, saying that she missed him very much during all those years. Now the two face each other in the bathroom, and she calls his name in a soft tone. With tears in her eyes, she asks why he is crying and if she made him sad. The protagonist only replies no, still unable to believe that she is there in his sink. With a smile, he explains that he is crying out of happiness for finally seeing her again. He sits by the bathtub and asks if she isn't going to tell him. The boy moves closer and wants to know how the hell she managed to get there. She repeats that she came simply because she missed him so much all this time. He gets all embarrassed and says that wasn't what he meant by his question. The protagonist wonders if she used to be that straightforward in the past. With that, he asks if now he will be able to see her anywhere he is. Yoon-hae confirms that yes, and disappears into the water, leaving him shocked by the answer. Frightened, he looks at the empty bathtub and calls her, but she doesn't answer anymore. Suddenly, he feels a cold touch on his cheek, coming from behind him. The mermaid appears out of nowhere and pinches his cheek, repeating that she can go anywhere. He gets startled by the appearance and says that he thought she had gone away again, but suddenly a loud knock on the door interrupts their conversation. A voice shouts from the other side and he asks Yoon-hae to meet him tomorrow at the same time. The countdown ends and the woman outside slaps him in the face. As she leaves, she shouts that he should live in the bathroom given how long he takes. Back in his room, he lies down deep in thought until his younger sister quietly calls him. She asks if he is okay since she heard screams, but he says it was nothing serious. The two sleep in separate beds divided by a simple curtain in the middle of the room. He vents that he wishes their aunt would disappear, but that they just need to endure a little longer. The protagonist thinks that before he felt hopeless, but now everything seems different to him. With a slight smile, he realizes that the days he longed for have finally arrived. The scene shifts to the teacher's room, where one of them asks what his relationship with others was like. The teacher tries to connect, saying that he also lost his father, and asks if he feels unmotivated. Leaving the room, he keeps thinking about it until some classmates call him. Two friends appear in the hallway, one wanting to play soccer and the other wanting to go to the cafeteria. Already with his friends, they talk about a bet the other class made on the soccer game. Suddenly, two girls appear, and one of them, with pink hair, greets him. He is surprised to hear that she knows him, and she says that he is famous for being handsome. His friends hug him, and the group invites him to a VIP event on April 28th. The protagonist looks confused and asks if that date isn't the same as the school exams, but his friends tell him not to worry, since he's already the second best in the class. With that, he refuses the invitation, thanking them kindly but saying he won't be able to go. His friends say goodbye and walk down the hallway, leaving the two girls behind. The friend tells Yoon-sol that he is a nice guy, and that the two of them would make a great match. Determined, she tells her friend to change the plans to the 29th. The friend agrees and says that she will find a way. Among his classmates, the protagonist reflects that for some reason, people have always seen him as someone very mature. However, he only wanted to make his mother proud, who could barely survive. He only cared about his mother, who was sick in a hospital bed, and it was at that moment that his uncle appeared, inviting him to live in his house. The scene shows an argument, with the aunt furious that he brought the children there. She shouts that she is not running a daycare, while the two siblings hide in fear. The couple then turns to them with a frightening look, ordering them to call her aunt. The new aunt proved to be cruel, forcing the little sister to eat even though she was full. She hits the girl's head with chopsticks, making the child scream in pain. The brother hugs her, begging please don't cry, trying to muffle the sound. The aunt then threatens them, telling them to stay quiet or they will be thrown out of the house. But the little girl can't stand it, and starts crying, and the woman mocks her pain. The aunt starts hitting the boy, who curls up to protect his sister from the blows. The uncle only says for him to apologize and not anger the woman, offering no help. With all that pressure, the boy felt like he was going insane. No matter how much he endured or studied, nothing seemed to change for the better. He even thought about giving up everything and joining his deceased father, but it was in those moments that Yoon-hae appeared to talk and give him support. Back in the present, he thanks Yoon-hae for everything, leaving her confused. He explains that his life was miserable and that he wished to see her every day. The mermaid then replies that she felt the same way, leaving the boy surprised. She says that if he hadn't gone to the cave, she wouldn't be who she is today, changing her life. He becomes emotional, remembering how long it has been since they met. Yoon-hae then asks if the woman who yelled at him is the cause of his miserable life. He explains that she isn't the only one to blame, but she is the main one responsible for everything. The boy promises that he will leave home when he becomes an adult, so he can spend more time with her. With that, the mermaid wants to know if he would be happier if the aunt weren't around. He thinks for a moment and answers sincerely that yes, it would be much better. Although it seems strange, he confesses that he has wished many times for his aunt to disappear. He fears she will think he is strange for thinking that way, but Yoon-hae just listens attentively. With a subtle smile, she simply says that she got the message and dives back into the sea. The next morning, his sister asks who he was talking to last night in the kitchen. He serves her breakfast, telling the girl to put away her phone so they can eat. While they eat, the sister comments that the aunt left a while ago and wonders if she's okay. but the boy says she's probably drinking and that they should enjoy the peace before she comes back. Later that night, he was already suspicious of something when a noise suddenly woke him up. He covers his head, wondering why his aunt drank so much whenever she was stressed. But then the noise stops, and he reflects that he doesn't understand why she chose to live that way. When leaving the room, the boy sees the house completely messy, wondering how the aunt left it like that. He then goes to the bathroom and notices that the bathtub still hasn't been emptied. With a strange feeling, the boy approaches the bathtub to take a look. He sees strands of red hair in the drain and remembers having cleaned the bathtub yesterday. The protagonist goes to the shoe cabinet and confirms that the aunt really didn't leave the house. An image shows the aunt sinking into the ocean, indicating that something terrible happened to her. The scene changes, and Yoon-hae suggests that they go to the island. Surprising the boy, she says that he needs to relax, but he argues that he has neither time nor money to go. But the mermaid says that he does, and reveals that she can connect the bathtub water to the sea. He asks if he would also be able to pass through that connection, and she confirms that yes. The boy stays silent for a moment, thinking about something before answering. Then he asks if by any chance she saw his aunt, since she hasn't come back for a while. Yoon-hae replies that no, explaining that she only appears when he calls her. He understands that she can only come out if he is nearby, which clears her of guilt. With a sigh of relief, the protagonist thanks the heavens that she wasn't involved. Suddenly, loud knocks on the door scare them both, and he goes to answer the intercom. A strange and intimidating man appears, asking where Kim Mi-young, his aunt, is. The boy replies that he doesn't know, and explains that he is only her nephew. Irritated, the man says that she stole his money and wants to know how long she plans to hide. Hae-sung tries to close the door, but the man blocks it, shouting that he hasn't finished speaking. The loan shark then threatens him, saying that he must find his aunt by the 28th if he wants to live. Before leaving, he still warns them not to even think about calling the police about it. The deadline arrives, but he can't contact his aunt, who remains missing. The scene changes to the school, where a classmate asks to see his test after the exam. His friends surround him, worried, asking if something happened to him. One of them tries to cheer him up, saying that the girls postponed the meeting because of him. But with a desperate look, the protagonist asks them to go to the restaurant today. The group leaves the school, and one friend says that he already called a taxi for them to go. On the way, he sees the loan sharks from afar and realizes that they followed him to school. Terrified, he blends in with his friends, while one of them says that the taxi will arrive in 2 minutes. One of the thugs turns around and calls the boss, who looks at him with a disdainful expression. They spot the protagonist in the crowd, identifying him by his green backpack. The loan sharks corner him in a dark alley, asking if he thought he could hide, but they end up catching the wrong boy, who doesn't understand anything that's happening. With an intimidating look, the two men stare at the student, making the atmosphere heavy. Inside the taxi, the protagonist feels sick, and his friends ask if he's okay. He then covers his mouth tightly, trying his hardest not to vomit inside the car. Already at the restaurant, the friends wonder why the girls are taking so long to arrive. One friend notices his tension and asks him to say what's going on, but he only apologizes. The other friend insists, asking if everything is okay at home, but he only says yes. Suddenly, the protagonist's eyes widen as he realizes he forgot something very important. In a rush, he turns to his friend and asks to borrow his phone for a moment. He runs to the bathroom to make a call, blaming himself for thinking only about himself. Desperate, he yells into the phone, asking where his sister Gyum Hae-bin is right now. She says that she's with her friends, and he forbids her from going home, telling her to sleep there. He shouts for her to just obey, while his sister asks why he's being so urgent. On the other end of the line, the boy hears her friend agreeing to host her, and he sighs in relief. Later, he drops her off at her friend's house, apologizing for the trouble and saying goodbye. The protagonist tells her to behave and promises to return the phone the next day. With his sister's phone in hand, he starts dialing the police number, making a decision. He thinks that he can't leave the house empty and plans to call as soon as they leave. Determined, he climbs the stairs, saying to himself that he needs to end this. Upon reaching his floor, the boy peeks and sees that there's no one in the hallway. Thinking he's safe, he walks to the door, planning to grab some things inside. But when he opens it, he comes face to face with the loan shark, who greets him with a sinister smile. The man stares at him angrily, asking if he thought he could simply run away. Trembling, the boy tries to call the police, but his hand can barely press the button. Before he can, the thug snatches the phone from his hand and ends the call. The loan sharks throw him inside the apartment, warning that he should prepare for the worst. The boss grabs him, saying that he will be punished for not finding his aunt in time. In a desperate act, he hits the thug and breaks free from the grip. The protagonist runs to the bathroom, but the loan sharks corner him and close the door. He has no way out, wondering what he can do to escape that situation. The men start banging on the door, and the boy trembles with fear, not knowing what to do. They break the door down and throw him to the floor, saying that they only wanted to scare him a little. The thug says it would be a waste to use the tools on him since they were meant for the ant. Then, the loan shark gives him two options, to be beaten with the shower hose, or with the other tools. He stares coldly, making it clear that the second option would be far worse. Without thinking twice, the boy chooses to be beaten with the shower hose to avoid the worst. The boss agrees and prepares to hit the young man, but suddenly, the shower hose wraps around the thug's arm and pulls him into the bathtub. The boss yells at the idiot to get up, embarrassed by the scene he's making. The man screams that something is pulling him from inside the bathtub, but no one believes him. The water begins to stir and the protagonist's friend panics at the sight. The man calls out the employee's name, but soon after, he too is pulled inside. The protagonist gasps, looking back in disbelief at what just happened. Then, Yoon-hae appears in the bathtub, revealing that she was the one who saved him from the loan sharks. The scene shows her dragging the men's bodies into the depths of the ocean. With a cold look, the mermaid stares at him, her hair still wet from what she did. The scene returns to the doctor's office, and the doctor asks what happened after that. He then explains that the police arrived and handled the whole situation that took place. The boy stands up, saying that therapy is useless, and asks only for his medication. At the reception, he pays the fee and refuses the offer to schedule another medical appointment. But as he leaves, he walks down the stairs and collapses, crying with his hands on his head. In a flashback from that night, Yoon-hae hugs him while he cries in despair. The protagonist says that he killed 2 people, feeling guilty for what happened, but she corrects him, coldly stating that it wasn't him, it was her who did it. She explains that no one will ever know because she hid the bodies and no one believes in mermaids. Frightened, he steps back and asks how she can stay so calm after everything. Yoon-hae says that they tormented him and that there's no problem getting rid of people like that. He questions her logic and asks if she would kill him too if he ever tormented her. But she looks at him tenderly, saying that his existence is the reason for her happiness. The boy doesn't understand her reaction and wonders why Yoon-hae changed so much. She then says that he's the one who changed, and that his personality isn't the same anymore. He panics, feeling helpless and wanting to escape that situation. A week later, he leaves school with his friends, one of them complaining that the test was difficult. One of the boys tells the other that if someone hears him say that, they'll think he actually studied. Putting his arm around the protagonist's neck, his friend asks why he's been so distant. The protagonist only smiles, and his friends find it strange. Even surrounded by friends, he walks down the street feeling completely alone in the world. In his mind, he decides that he can no longer see Yoon-hae, because she's not the same person anymore. He explains that he's human and needs to adapt to his new life, and that he can't see her again. With a broken heart, he asks her to find another happiness for herself. The boy walks away, leaving her alone in the bathtub, with an expression of deep sadness. The scene ends with him saying goodbye to his friends and arriving at his house's door. When he enters, a voice greets him, and he sees his uncle with 2 strange men. The uncle tells him to go to his room, but the men call him over to talk a bit. He gets scared, but one of them says they're police officers and are only investigating. Sitting with them in the living room, the officer reveals the news that his aunt has died. The boy feels relieved, thinking they won't ask about the loan sharks who disappeared. One of the officers finds his lack of reaction strange and asks if he already knew the news. He panics, blaming himself for feeling relieved about someone's death. But his uncle defends him, saying that the woman was a parasite who spent all the money. The boy can't understand why the uncle, who never helped him, is defending him now. His aunt had been pursued by loan sharks because of her debts. In a flashback, the aunt receives a threatening call, telling her to stop calling. Because of that, the uncle cut contact with her for a few weeks until he got a phone call. On the call, he finds out that she was with another woman, and he explodes with rage. Consumed by hatred, the aunt promises to kill everyone, with a look of pure vengeance. That rainy night, the aunt takes a taxi, and the driver asks for her destination. She says she's going to Bucheon, and he warns that the fare will be very expensive at that hour. Looking through the rearview mirror, the taxi driver gets scared when he sees her holding a knife. He stops the car and throws her out, threatening to call the police if she doesn't leave immediately. Back in the car, he complains that he's all wet and thinks he's been seeing too many strange things. While driving, he wonders if he should have reported the woman to the police. Feeling sleepy, the driver decides to get a coffee to stay awake on the road. But when he turns around, he comes face to face with the aunt who appears in front of the car. She attacks him, and in desperation, he steps on the accelerator, screaming for her to get out. He loses control of the vehicle, which skids on the road and crashes hard into the barrier, causing the woman to fall into the sea. Then the police were at her house investigating why she had gone out with a knife. After talking, they thank them for the cooperation and say goodbye, leaving the uncle and nephew alone. As the protagonist closes the door, his uncle asks if everything was fine during his absence. That shocks him, unable to believe how cynical he's being. The boy feels disgusted by his uncle's careless face but knows he can't do anything, and besides that, he depends on his uncle or he'd be homeless. While studying, he feels as if his younger self is confronting him, asking if he's a murderer. The voice continues, questioning why he's studying peacefully after sending Yoon-hae away, and deep down, he's terrified that the mermaid might have left a body behind. The boy thinks that he can simply leave, just like he did when he went to Seoul. Suddenly, his sister calls him, saying that Grandma Malsuk called his phone. He answers and greets his grandmother, trying to sound as calm as possible during the call. The boy says that he's been living well and that his sister Hee-bin has already become a grown girl. Pretending that the signal is bad, he asks her to wait as he's stepping outside to talk. He sits on the floor of the hallway, continuing the conversation with his grandmother outside. The protagonist stays silent for a moment, processing what he just heard. The scene cuts to him looking at old family photos from when they were still happy. In a flashback, little Hae-seong asks how his mom is feeling. The mother is cleaning his sister's ear and asks him to get another cotton swab. While searching, he starts thinking about what would happen if something went wrong. He wonders if a stepfather will show up, but the only image he has is of his father. When he turns around, he finds his sister sleeping on the floor and gets a little surprised. The boy wakes her up and asks where their mother went, but the little girl doesn't remember her, and she tells him that they don't have a mother. He questions why they don't have a mother, and the sister says that they should go look for her. The two walk along the pier until the boy spots their mother's boat in the distance. He points excitedly, saying that she went to get food for them in the sea. The little sister still doubts it, but he insists that they do have a mother. With tears in his eyes, he gets angry and tells his sister to go back home alone. He then runs along the pier, climbing onto a boat and shouting his mother's name, but when he arrives, he finds the boat completely empty and in absolute silence. Suddenly, he hears a voice calling him, and he fills with hope, thinking it's his mother. The boy climbs onto the boat, following the voice that keeps calling his name, but when he looks through the window, he finds no one and wonders where she is. The voice calls him again, and when he turns around, he sees seagulls. Terrified, his mother's body was floating in the water. In the present, he receives the news from his grandmother that his mother lost her life. While preparing to enter the funeral, he says that he was already ready for this situation. He looks at the photo of his mother, who had been in a coma since that incident and is now gone. With an incense stick in hand, he apologizes for not managing to be first in his class. He lies down on the floor and says that he had been preparing for this moment for years. The boy says goodbye, asking her not to be alone and to be happy by his father's side. With tears in his eyes, he remembers the happy moments he had with his family. Inside the house, he drinks in silence while the rain falls outside. The uncle asks Hae-sang's friends how they managed to get there. He mocks them, asking if they skipped class just to come to the funeral. The friends get irritated and say that they came because Hae-sang is their best friend. The uncle praises them, saying that they're better than the mother who abandoned her own children. The friends feel awkward and wonder if he's really the protagonist's uncle. Later, our hero accompanies his friends and asks what time the train arrives. The friend asks if his uncle always acts like that, and he says yes. Confused, the friend apologizes, but the other nudges him, not understanding the reason for the apology. In the elevator, the protagonist says goodbye, wishing them a safe trip back home. The friends look at each other, worried about Hae-sang's emotional state. One of them calls him and with a serious look, tries to give him one last piece of advice. He says that if his friend collapses now, his sister will have no one left to rely on. The words hit hard, and the protagonist bursts into tears in front of them. The friends hug him, telling him to cry as much as he wants and trying to comfort him. Back in the funeral room, he finds his sister sitting alone, staring at nothing. He sits beside her and hugs her, saying that she still has someone by her side. The little girl comments that his accent came back when he spoke to the people from their hometown. She remembers when they practiced the Seoul accent after they arrived in the city. He says that he'll only be sad until the end of the funeral, so their mother won't be sad. The protagonist promises that he will grow up to take on both the roles of father and mother. The sister says that she will always be by his side, as long as he doesn't do anything bad. He jokes and asks what would be an example of something bad, leaving the sister thoughtful. With an innocent look, she answers that maybe something like murder would be bad. She assures him that as long as he doesn't do that, they'll always be an inseparable duo. The scene returns to the school and the teacher begins class by talking about the test results. He complains that the class got the worst grades and tells them to study for their parents' sake. The teacher uses the protagonist as an example and asks if the others don't feel anything. The students start whispering, not understanding why the teacher mentioned Hae-sang. His friends are shocked by the teacher's audacity, and the protagonist packs up his things. One of his friends kicks a can, furious at the teacher for exposing Hae-sang's personal life. They suggest complaining or even asking for the teacher's resignation, but he says to let it go. The protagonist says goodbye, saying that he needs to go pick up his sister from her school. When he gets there, he finds his sister with two friends, who are enchanted by him. The sister introduces him as her oppa, and the friends compliment him, saying that he's very handsome. He asks why they left early, and the sister explains that it's because of the exams. The friends compare him to a famous actor, making the boy embarrassed by the compliment. But suddenly one of the friends reveals that his sister didn't go to Jeju Island, but to a funeral. The protagonist is shocked and wonders what Jeju Island has to do with all of this. The friend points to the boy, saying that he's trying to run away, and his sister trembles in fear. The boy who spread the gossip is caught, and the friend says that Haebin's oppa will handle him. The boy defends himself, saying that he only repeated what he heard from his mother about the funeral. Hae-sang apologizes on his sister's behalf, and the boy doesn't know how to respond. He pats the boy's head, saying that it's okay, and apologizing again. The protagonist confirms that they went to Jeju Island and asks him to tell that to his mother. The sister's friends are impressed by his attitude, thinking the scene is very cool. On the way home, the sister asks if he wasn't angry, but he says that it's okay. He takes her to the movies, saying that it's to make up for the Children's Day they missed. The sister gets excited about a kids' movie and says she heard it's really famous. He asks if she wants to watch it, but the little girl says it's too childish for them. He looks at the movie times and she ends up choosing the kids' movie anyway. The movie scene shows a birthday party, with the main character happy. The two watch the movie in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The character in the movie says that her parents love her very much and hugs them warmly. Beside him, he hears his sister sniffing and realizes that she's crying during the movie. The protagonist asks if she wants to leave, but the little girl just nods silently. Afterward, they go to a restaurant and he asks if the food tastes good to her. He feels guilty, thinking he shouldn't have suggested watching that movie. The boy asks if she still remembers the days they spent on Mole Island. He remembers how their father used to be happy with every little achievement of his daughter. The boy says that all her accomplishments were celebrated with big parties on the island. The sister says that she likes the life they have now, surprising her brother. She explains that before she used to feel lonely, but now she has many friends to play with. He remembers when he met Yoonhae and how she helped him overcome everything. The protagonist becomes thoughtful, remembering the happy moments he spent with the mermaid. As they leave the restaurant, he notices that it started to rain, but decides to walk anyway. The light turns green for them, but the boy says to wait since they're already late. But the sister insists that she can cross and runs ahead of him. He sighs, saying that he doesn't want to run but gets scared by something he sees on the street. A truck speeds forward and he screams his sister's name in despair, trying to warn her. The people around scream in panic, thinking that the girl was run over by the vehicle. A vision suddenly hits him, and he wonders if it was actually him who died, but a mysterious hand pulls her back, saving the little girl from a fatal accident. The girl apologizes, crying, and he hugs her, asking if she got hurt. She says that it was just a few scratches, and he hugs her tightly, relieved after the scare. Back home, she insists that someone pulled her, but he says that she must be mistaken. The girl swears that she felt someone's hand, and he jokes, saying that it was a ghost. She gets excited with the idea, but he interrupts her, telling her not to take it seriously. With a smile, he tells her to go to sleep, ending the conversation about the ghost. The sister says that if it was a ghost, she hopes it was their mom or dad. He agrees silently and sits at his desk to study while his sister sleeps. In the bathroom, he feels powerless, thinking that he will never be able to fill their parents' void. At school, the class is called for career counseling, and his friend returns from the room. He enters the teacher's office, who greets him and asks him to sit down. The teacher looks for his documents, and he waits, a bit anxious. He ends up seeing his friend's form, where it says that he wants to be a billionaire in the future. Then the protagonist sees his own form, where it says orphan, needs special attention. The teacher hands him the file and clears his throat before starting the counseling session. After class, a group of girls invites him to go to karaoke with them. His friends agree right away, saying that they also feel like going to karaoke. The two groups meet in the hallway, and the pink-haired girl seems surprised by something. She asks her friend to call Hae-sung, and he accuses her of liking the protagonist. The girl gets furious and grabs the friend by the collar, telling him to stop with those ideas. The friend calls him, and the girl tries to act cute. He gets a bit confused since it's such a random invitation. The protagonist refuses, saying that he doesn't sing much. The girls insist, eventually convincing him to go. The friend jokes, telling the girl not to take too long choosing her outfit, and she says goodbye. The girls hug each other, celebrating that the plan worked and that their crush is going with them. The friends freak out, saying that Hae-sung only looked at her during the whole conversation. The pink-haired girl melts, calling him a hopeless romantic. The group says goodbye and leaves the school, but the girl receives an unexpected call. She says it was her father, and that he offered to drive them to the karaoke place. The friend suggests that she should run after the car, but the girl refuses to do that. She jokes, asking if everyone shouldn't call their parents too to get a ride. The friend joins in on the joke, but suddenly covers his own mouth. The girl asks what's wrong with him, and the protagonist doesn't understand his reaction. The friend runs off, shouting that he wants to go to karaoke, acting strangely. The protagonist stays behind, and another friend asks him to wait for the group. The group walks to the karaoke place, and one of them comments that the place has good service. The friend approaches and calls the protagonist, seeming like he wants to say something important. He apologizes for the earlier joke, and Hae-seung doesn't understand the reason. The boy doesn't get why he's apologizing for talking about parents. He steps away, saying that he doesn't know what his friend is talking about, and keeps walking. The protagonist feels out of place, wondering why everyone else seems to have a normal life. The scene shows the karaoke sign, and his friend already starts singing enthusiastically. But his score is terrible, and the others make fun of his awful performance. The pink-haired friend whispers something to the other, and the two seem to have a plan. One of the girls interrupts the singing, saying that she has something important to tell. She complains that she fought with her mom and that now her curfew is 9 o'clock. The pink-haired girl takes the opportunity and starts talking with the protagonist. She asks why he's leaving early, and he explains that he has a younger sister at home. The girl asks if his parents work late, and the friend scolds her. He says it's a personal matter, and the girl gets irritated. The friend defends himself, saying that people shouldn't talk about family with the protagonist. The mood becomes tense, and another friend tries to lighten things up, calling the next person to sing. The pink-haired girl grabs the microphone, determined to lift the group's spirits. While she sings, the protagonist says that he's going to leave. Outside, the friend catches up to him, asking if he's okay with what happened, and if he got mad at him. In response, our hero asks why his friend always interferes whenever people talk about his family. The boy says he did that because Hae had just lost his mother, but Hae himself replies that he was treating him like an outcast. Confused, his friend asks what he means, and says that even his own family has problems. The protagonist says that he's not ashamed of his family and that he feels fine with them. And he also says that his friend isn't being any different from the teacher who exposed him in class. He shouts that he was only worried and that the protagonist is acting like a jerk. Later, the friend regrets it, feeling like an idiot for taking out his anger on him. Another friend comforts him, saying that only they understand Hae-sung's situation. He explains that he got angry for being compared to the class teacher. The friend decides that he'll apologize, but the other says that he crossed the line. He gets angry at himself, wondering why the hell he did that to his friend. Back home, the protagonist goes into the bathroom and sits pensively on the edge of the bathtub. Yoonhae appears and says that they have much more in common than he imagines. He apologizes for acting like a coward and for being scared of her. The boy thanks her for saving his sister from the truck accident. He also thanks her for saving his own life, and the mermaid smiles kindly. She reveals that she doesn't have a father either, and that in fact she never had parents. The boy realizes that maybe he missed her because he felt different from everyone else. The mermaid says that she wants to be a friend he can trust during difficult times. He opens up saying that he's very tired of everything he's been going through. The protagonist feels like a stranger and doesn't know if he wants comfort or a normal life. He wonders if Yoon-hao also felt that way and seeks comfort in his friend. She comforts him, saying that his friend didn't say those things out of malice. The mermaid says that there's no reason for them to hate each other because no one truly understands them. She says that everyone will abandon him, always judging him for being different from others. He denies it, saying that his friends aren't like that, but she doubts his answer. The boy apologizes and the mermaid asks why he's apologizing. He dodges the question, saying that it's nothing, and accepts that she might be right. The protagonist feels guilty and wonders if it's because he abandoned his friend. Then Yoon-hae says that she has something to show him, and touches the water in the bathtub. She asks him to look into the water and dive, leaving him curious. He obeys and submerges his head in the water, waiting to see what will happen. The boy opens his eyes and finds himself at the bottom of what seems to be a real ocean. Frightened, he emerges from the water, gasping and unable to believe what he just saw. He asks how the sea can be there, and she replies that it's the same as before. The mermaid reveals that it's the seawater from Malay Island, the place where they met. She invites him to come in and pulls him into the water with an inviting smile. He is carried by her and feels like it's the first time they swam together again. Yoon-hae holds him and says that their feelings for each other will never change. But suddenly her hand begins to fade, and he looks at her, confused by the sight. He shouts for her not to go, and suddenly he wakes up coughing in his home bathtub. The mermaid hugs him and he asks why she's doing that, completely confused. He remembers the death of the loan sharks and screams that he doesn't want to die like that. The boy says that he was scared and asks her to get out of the water, still in panic. But Yoon-hae reveals that she has always wanted to receive something from him, and asks if he will give it. Before he can answer, the mermaid kisses him, leaving him completely stunned. She looks at him and touches his face with an unreadable expression in her eyes. With a satisfied smile, she asks if it was good, and he feels strange. He pulls away and thinks that something isn't right, feeling that something is wrong. The boy goes to the kitchen and shivers, thinking that he kissed a mermaid. He wonders why she sees him as more than a friend. At that moment, he drops the kettle and decides not to fill the bathtub the next day. But when he turns around, he sees Yoon-hae on the floor. She appeared in the puddle of water. She says that they need to meet, and right after that she disappears again. The refrigerator starts beeping because it's open, but Hae is confused, wondering why she came again. He trembles, feeling that the situation is worse than before and that something is very wrong. The next day at school, his friend approaches him to finally talk. He complains that apologizing is very embarrassing, but that everyone insisted he do it. The friend apologizes for having crossed the line, and the protagonist accepts the apology. He remembers Yoon-hae's words and wonders why they keep coming to his mind. The protagonist thanks him, and the two finally make peace, leaving the friend confused. Suddenly, the rest of the group shows up, celebrating that the two made up. He calls the pink-haired girl Sol-bi to talk outside the classroom. The girl gets all excited and says yes, accepting the invitation immediately. He knows that this is wrong, but he can't let it affect his daily life. The boy thinks that, either way, he needs to protect himself above all else. He calls Sol-bi and says that he doesn't know how to say what he needs to say. The girl encourages him, telling him to say what he wants without fear, with a smile. He asks if she has any clothes she doesn't need anymore because his sister has grown up. The boy explains that he wanted to buy new clothes for her but doesn't have any money. He apologizes for asking suddenly, but the girl seems a little disappointed. The scene cuts to her room, where her friends ask why she would give him the clothes. They question why he wanted to talk in private and hint that he has a crush on her. The girl freaks out and says that's not even half of what actually happened. The next day, he shows up with a bunch of clothes, and she says that there's much more. But the girl says that she has one condition for giving him the clothes, leaving him surprised. She invites him to go to the beach with the group and says she'll only give the clothes if he goes. He thinks for a moment and ends up agreeing to the condition she set. The friends celebrate, saying that this is her chance to finally win him over. They already start talking about marriage, and the girl laughs, saying they're going too far. Back in the bathroom, Yoon-hae tries on one of the dresses and asks what he thinks. He says that it looks good on her and tries to seem as natural as possible in front of her. The boy thinks that he needs to please her so she won't act so controlling. The mermaid says that she prefers the old shirt because it was the first gift he gave her. He says that the shirt is too small and that this dress is also a gift from him to her. He wonders if she thinks the dress was a gift from someone else. The mermaid calls him to get in the water again and see the ocean once more, but he refuses, saying that it was too frightening last time and that he can't go in. Yoon-hae confronts him, saying that's not what he said before, leaving him confused. She reveals that she heard him telling the girl that he would go to the beach with her in the summer. The scene shows the pink-haired girl inviting him to go to the beach with the group. Shocked, he asks how she saw that, and wonders if she's been watching him at school. She explains that water is everywhere, and that she can see everything through it. The mermaid says that she needed the clothes and orders him to get into the water right now. He realizes that he has no choice but to obey, and that he can't go back anymore. Yoon-hae makes sure to show him the reality they are living in now. Suddenly the boy starts coughing, and the mermaid stares at him with an empty look. He wanted to say that it was she who killed them, but he knew it was a useless thought. Yoon-hae uses it against him, and he feels completely at the mermaid's mercy. At home, he yells at his sister, telling her not to fill the bathtub when he's there. The sister defends herself, saying it was for a science project, but he doesn't believe her. He shouts that if she had remembered what he said, she would have done it somewhere else. At school, a girl stops him, saying that he forgot his ID badge and will be punished for it. His friend gets startled and he wonders when he lost his school badge. He starts making a mental list, trying to understand what's happening to him. The protagonist thinks that he has to meet the mermaid every afternoon, and that she hates delays. He remembers that Yoonhae can only leave the water if he's nearby, which complicates everything. Suddenly, he gets startled by a noise. A classmate drops her water bottle on the floor and apologizes for the scare. She asks if anyone has paper towels, but the classroom is out and no one has any. The protagonist gets an idea and grabs a tissue to help the girl clean up. She thanks him, and he tells her to hurry up and clean the mess quickly. The girl thinks his attitude is rude and wonders what's gotten into him. His friends throw a note onto his desk, asking if something's wrong with him. Then Hugh turns to them, and they stare at him, trying to understand why he's acting like that. The friend answers that no, but it's obvious that something's wrong with him. He thinks about who he could tell, but knows no one would believe his story. For days he thinks about how to get rid of Yoonhae, but finds no solution. Finally, the day of the beach trip arrives, and the sea is already just ahead. He feels tense and concludes that this has become the most miserable day of his life. When they arrive at the inn, one of the girls complains about the smell and asks if there wasn't a better place. They decide to unpack their things and head straight to the beach to enjoy the day. But the protagonist says that he's not feeling well and will go later once he feels better. He watches his friends having fun at the beach while he stays alone in the room. He remembers Yoonhae telling him to go when no one is around. The mermaid reminds him that he has no choice and that he must obey her orders. The boy fears that she will suddenly appear while he's with his friends. He goes to the kitchen and drinks some water, still deep in thought about what to do. The boy wonders if he really needs Yoonhae in his life and makes a decision. He decides that he must find a way to make Yoonhae disappear for good. The group returns from the beach and the girl complains that she spent a fortune on her outfit for nothing. They find the protagonist and say that they brought sashimi for everyone to eat together. He offers to set the table, and the pink-haired girl helps him with the food. The friend complains that it took them forever to find a restaurant since there was nothing nearby. The protagonist is surprised and asks how they managed to buy the sashimi. The friend says there's nothing to do in the area, and they start eating. The girl offers him a cup, but the protagonist politely refuses the drink. His friends get annoyed and tell him to stop acting that way with them. One of them says that they came from far away and that he's not taking part in anything. Tired of the argument, he sighs and says that it's fine, agreeing to join them. Night falls and the group has fun on the porch, laughing and talking cheerfully. Still disheartened, our hero tries to blend in, but the memory resurfaces. The boy remembers his aunt's death and her image haunts him again. Back to reality, his friend asks if they already know which school they'll attend. A friend says that Jaejung is going to art school, and that the girls are too. The girls talk about their plans, and he says that he's thinking about a cooperative program. The girl jokes, saying that he still needs to study even in that program. He thinks that everyone has dreams and plans for the future, feeling a bit out of place. His friends insist that he should go to a better school since his grades are very good. Another friend covers his mouth, saying that Hee-sung's parents must be proud of him. The girl says that it's every parent's dream, and he just smiles, not knowing what to say. Tired of hiding it, he reveals to everyone that he has no parents, shocking the group. He explains that his parents passed away, and that's why he can't go to a better school. The protagonist decides to tell them everything that happened, and the friends listen in silence. He tells them about his father's death, the move to Seoul, and the recent death of his mother. Seeing their sadness, he asks why they look so sad and if he should stop. He also reveals about the old lady who used to help him and why he got rid of his phone. The boy wonders if he's drunk and why he's telling them all of that. He remembers Yoonhae saying that he has no choice, and the fear returns to haunt him. Suddenly, he wakes up and wonders when he fell asleep in the room. Still in the middle of the night, he gets up, determined to put his plan into action. He knows he can't fight her and is afraid of what she would do if he exposed her. With a knife in his hand, he decides that he needs to end it all in the ocean. He goes to the beach and tells himself that everything will be fine in the end. The boy thinks that his life has been hard enough and that he deserves a bit of peace. But as he enters the water, he is surprised by his friend, who stops him from continuing. The friend confronts him, asking if he's serious about leaving so early. He accuses him of trying to kill himself, and the boy says that it's nothing like that. The knife falls into the water, and the friend asks how he can calm down in a situation like this. The protagonist yells for him to get out of the water, saying it's too dangerous there. Angrily, his friend says that he always chooses to suffer alone, but suddenly the mermaid appears. With a smile, she greets him and asks why he brought his friend along. The friend turns around and asks who the girl is, leaving the protagonist in panic. He wonders why she came out and fears that something terrible will happen to his friend. Frightened, the friend ends up falling. He is shocked when he sees the mermaid's tail, and the protagonist yells for him to get out of the water. The mermaid confronts him, but he says that he's Hae-sung's real friend. Tired of the argument, the protagonist shouts for them to stop fighting right now. He holds her and asks why she's doing that, feeling betrayed by her. The boy says that if she were truly his friend, she wouldn't put him in danger. He reveals that she and his friends are equally precious to him, without distinction. Yoonhae touches his face and says that she doesn't like being treated like the others. The mermaid says that she wants him to realize that she's special and to treat her differently. He says that he'll try, but the mermaid responds that she doesn't believe his words. She accuses him of not wanting to try and says that's why he brought a knife with him. Suddenly, she shows the knife in her hand, leaving the boy in shock. Then she asks if he's afraid of her now too. He stammers, saying that he brought the knife to protect himself and that he would never hurt her. The mermaid says that it seems like he's protecting his friend, not the other way around, and that he only protected her back when they still lived on the island. The mermaid says that she doesn't like the situation or having his friend nearby. He throws himself into the water and begs her not to do anything, saying that it was a mistake. The boy pleads on his knees, begging her to please let his friend go. Yoonhae says that he doesn't need his friend and that he's always been alone, even surrounded by people. She invites him to return to Mole Island and relive the happy times they once had. He accepts the offer and says that they can go, but the girl wants to talk about it after the friend leaves. The protagonist helps his friend get up and leads him out of the water. He tells his friend not to say anything and just go, and the mermaid watches everything from afar. The boy begs her to find happiness somewhere else, but she doesn't believe him. She accuses him of lying again, and he turns around, calling her name. Suddenly his friend screams and says that something is pulling him down into the water. The protagonist tries to help him, but the friend shouts that something is pulling him hard. He tries to pull his friend up, but realizes that the mermaid won't let him go no matter what. Desperate, he screams for her to let go, saying that his friend has nothing to do with them. He realizes that he can't lose his friend and grabs a rock from the water. With all his strength, he hits the hand that's holding his friend, trying to free him. From under the water, she looks at him with that insane gaze, and decides to squeeze the boy's hand even harder. He screams in pain, and the two are finally released from the mermaid's grip. His friend sinks into the water, and the protagonist screams his name in despair. With tears in his eyes, he stares at the mermaid, feeling betrayed and powerless. She reveals that she sent his friend to the bottom of the ocean, but that he's not dead yet. The mermaid says that she will bring him back if he says what she wants to hear from him. He stammers, saying that he'll go to the island with her, but that's not what she wants. The boy tries to apologize for hurting her, but she interrupts him again. He says that she's the most important person to him, but she denies it once more. The mermaid tells him to try again and drowns him until he says the right answer. She hugs him and tells him to keep trying until he says what she wants to hear. The scene shifts to the police station, and the protagonist's uncle leaves him alone to be interrogated. The detective calls him and takes him to a room to be questioned about the case. The detective reminds him that it's illegal for a minor to stay at a lodging without a guardian. He starts telling what happened, saying that he woke up early to go to the beach. But as he relives the scene, he has a panic attack and begins to feel suffocated. The image of his friend drowning comes to his mind, and he panics in the room. He knocks over the table and the detective gets startled, asking what's wrong with him. The boy says that he can't remember and that he can't continue with the testimony. The scene changes and the mother of one of his friends complains that this will ruin her son's college entrance exams. She tries to blame Haishong, saying that he hangs out with bad influences and has no parents. The mother hits her son and blames him for going to the beach without her permission. The detective tries to calm her down, saying that whatever she says won't affect the investigation. He asks the friend what the relationship between Haishong and the missing boy was like. The friend says that on the night of the incident, the missing boy became very sentimental. He assures that his friend would never hurt anyone, and that he's sure of it. The detective asks if he ever crossed the line when talking about Haishong's family. The officer asks if they were drinking, and the boy is shocked by the question. With no evidence, the detectives conclude that it was an accidental drowning caused by alcohol. A week later, he receives a visit from his friend, and asks how he found his address. The friend reveals that the missing boy's parents have given up the search, and are holding the funeral. He asks if he can go, and the friend encourages him, saying that he should. The friend shakes him, saying that if he keeps running away, no one will believe in his innocence. He agrees to meet him the next day, and the friend cries, relieved by his decision. At the funeral, he finds his friend, who calls him inside to pay his respects. The boy bows in respect, and the deceased family watches him in silence. He approaches the parents, and the friend introduces him, saying that Haishong is there. The protagonist bows in respect, and the boy's mother stares at him with sadness. The boy's father greets him and asks him to say goodbye to his son one last time. He kneels before the altar, and the father tells the woman not to say anything to the boy. In silence, he lights an incense stick and sits to pay his last respects. He remembers the scene of his friend drowning and feels that he's the one to blame. He wishes he were insane and that it was all just in his head. In a flashback, the students get ready to take the class graduation photo. His friend asks the protagonist what he thinks of his look, but he doesn't even look. He laughs, saying that he feels strange with the top button of his shirt closed. The photographer asks him to turn slightly and takes the picture at the perfect moment, and it was exactly that photo taken that day that was displayed at his funeral. Hai just wanted to die, feeling guilty for what had happened. He bows in respect, and the boy's mother approaches with a hesitant expression. She asks desperately if he didn't hurt her son and if it was really just an accident. The father tries to restrain her, but the woman clings to the protagonist, begging for the truth. She recalls how the two were close, and how he used to have dinner at their house. The father reprimands her and apologizes to the guests for the scene she's making. The deceased sister calls the protagonist and his friend to talk outside. She takes them to a more private room and begins speaking to both of them. The girl says that the family isn't doing well and that everything happened so suddenly. With tears in her eyes, she says that she still can't believe what happened to her brother. She hugs him hesitantly and tries to get closer to offer some comfort. The girl says that she's sure it was an accident because he was her brother's best friend. That's why they will ask the police to stop the investigation and that she believes in him. She remembers how they always supported each other, but the girl asks our hero never to come back there again. He should stay for a while and then leave quietly without anyone seeing him. She says goodbye, saying that she hopes never to see him again and that it would be better for her. His other friend approaches and asks if Hai is okay, but the protagonist interrupts and asks if it's starting to rain. With that, he turns and says that he's already leaving. He knows that with water nearby, he must leave as quickly as possible. He runs out into the rain, leaving his friend behind, confused by his reaction. He remembers Yoon-hae and how she threatened him, saying that she wouldn't see him for a while. The mermaid tells him to call her again when he figures out what he did wrong to her. Alone in the rain, he lifts his head and looks at the sky, feeling completely lost. He realizes that he can't escape her, no matter where he goes in the world. The boy blames himself for his friend's death, and fears that the mermaid will kill someone else. When he gets home, his sister sees him soaking wet and asks if he's okay. He tells the girl to leave the house for 3 hours, leaving her confused by the request. The girl obeys, and he goes to the bathroom, filling the bathtub to call her. He calls for Yoon-hae and reaches out his hand to her with a determined look. The mermaid appears, and he pulls her close, holding her hand tightly. The protagonist kisses her and looks at her with a smile on his lips, surprising the mermaid. He says that he missed her and realized that she is all he has. The boy asks her to take him back to the island, and she pulls him into the water. He thinks that he doesn't deserve to live and apologizes to everyone he left behind. The protagonist says that he needs to do this to protect his friends and his family. He and Yoon-hae are in the island cave, and he decides that he must do it. The boy comments that the place hasn't changed at all, and that it's still peaceful and beautiful. He says that he should have come earlier, so they could talk more openly. The boy thanks her for bringing him back to his happy childhood. He hugs her and asks her to take him back home so he can pack his things. Back at the apartment, his sister arrives and calls for him, worried about his disappearance. The girl finds a letter and reads it, discovering that he will be gone for a month. She gets confused by the letter and wonders what happened to her brother. On the island, he says that he always wanted to see her house, and she seems surprised. The mermaid says that she doesn't remember much about her family and only remembers having fun with him. But he knows that it's a lie and remembers the abuse he suffered in his childhood. The protagonist thinks that the longing he feels makes him remember every detail of his family. He wonders what would happen if he lured her outside and drained the water. The boy thinks that the beach is only 3 minutes away and that it wouldn't be hard to get rid of her. But he knows that she would kill him first and that he can't defeat her by force. A month passes and he remains on the island, living a quiet life with the mermaid. He spends his days swimming and talking with her, far from all his problems. He wished he could let the water fill his lungs, but she wouldn't let him. He wanted to drown, but Yoon-hae would never allow him to die. At night, they went back home and she stayed with him until he fell asleep. After a month, he started to feel happy by her side again, but she seemed resentful, and he said that she would never understand what he went through. He felt sorry for her and imagined young Yoon-hae waiting for him all alone. The boy hugs her and apologizes for leaving her alone for so long. She says that she was sad that he changed and that his friends hurt him. The mermaid says that she hated seeing him suffer because he meant the world to her. He wonders if she would have stayed the same if he hadn't left. The protagonist realizes that he ruined everything with his greed and selfishness, and hugs her. Without her, he would have never realized what was wrong with himself. Despite his hopeless situation, he feels calm beside her. She notices that he's sick and asks if he feels dizzy. The mermaid asks if he didn't bring enough food and if he's starving. He explains that he can't stand food anymore since he spends most of the day in the water. Yoon-hae says that they should go back to Seoul, leaving the protagonist surprised by her decision. She reminds him that his vacation is almost over and that he needs to return to school. He asks if he can go back and is surprised that she doesn't hate him for being in Seoul. The mermaid says that she would hate it more if he got sick and takes him out of the water. She hugs him and thanks him for everything he's done for her lately. The boy is surprised by her kindness and wonders if he's felt this before. Back home, he finds his sister who hugs him, worried about his disappearance. She asks where he's been, and the boy tells her not to wake him up because he wants to sleep. The sister cries and he sleeps for days as if dead, finally at peace. 2 days before the end of vacation, he talks with the mermaid in the bathroom. She says that she wants to see the outside world and he agrees, a bit uneasy. The boy says that they've spent too much time in Seoul and that he wants to try something different. The two go out in the rain and he asks if she wants the umbrella, but she refuses. He thinks that school starts the day after tomorrow, but that he's no longer interested in going. He asks if he should drop out of school to live with her on the island, leaving her surprised. The mermaid asks why, and he says that it's what she wanted, for them to live alone forever. She says that it's a great idea, but that he shouldn't decide now, only discuss it. Suddenly, the pink-haired girl appears and calls for him, interrupting the conversation. She asks what he's doing there in the rain, leaving him uneasy. He diverts the subject, saying that he dropped something and that he's already leaving that place. The girl says that everyone has been wondering how he's doing and that she was going to visit him at school. She gets closer and says that everyone is worried, but he says that he needs to go. The girl stops him and reveals that she's been going to therapy and that it's been helping a lot. She says that the therapist told her it's better to share sadness with those who went through the same thing. The girl says that they've been meeting to comfort one another and he stops. She invites him to join them, but the image of the mermaid appears beside her. He gets irritated and asks if she really thinks they went through the same thing. The boy laughs and says that she's so stupid she doesn't even know when to shut up. With a sinister smile, he stares at her and the girl can't understand his reaction. He confronts her, saying that she was asleep when everything happened and doesn't know anything. The boy says that he was studying, but that she used the clothes as an excuse to take him to the beach. He accuses her of ruining his vacation and bragging about having a therapist for him. The girl apologizes and he stares at her, waiting for an answer to his question. With tears in her eyes, she admits that she crossed the line and apologizes again. She turns around and leaves, while the protagonist keeps watching her. The mermaid appears in a puddle of water and says that the girl must be very hurt. She says she's happy to see how much he cares about her and that she can wait. Yoon-hae tells him to keep going to school and that she can wait for him. She reminds him that school starts tomorrow and asks if he's excited to go back. Suddenly the doorbell rings and he gets startled, not knowing who it could be. He wonders if it's his uncle since his sister isn't home at that moment. The boy tells the mermaid to wait and goes to the door, feeling a bit anxious. When he opens it, he comes face to face with his friend, who says that they need to talk. He asks how the friend figured out the password, but the friend says they should just talk. He sighs and says that the friend needs to leave because he doesn't want to talk anymore. The friend says that it's not too late to apologize and that everything can go back to normal. He says he can't just let him stay there suffering alone. The protagonist says that the friend means nothing to him, leaving him speechless. The friend is shocked, and the protagonist throws him out, telling him to leave him alone. He walks away and asks if Haisheng really meant what he said, but he doesn't answer. Before leaving, he turns around and says that he has something important to tell him. He reveals that he didn't tell the police about their fight because he trusted him, but now he regrets it and wonders what really happened that day. With a mocking smile, the protagonist asks why he didn't tell the truth. The friend gets angry and leaves while the protagonist stumbles backward. He enters the bathroom and asks if the mermaid heard everything, and she says that he's cruel. The friend walks down the stairs, still shocked by the protagonist's behavior during their argument. He wonders if something happened between them but tries to push the thought away. Suddenly, he finds Haisheng's sister sitting on the stairs. The girl asks if he talked to her brother, and he looks at her with sadness. He apologizes and says that there's nothing he can do to help now. The sister asks if that's really true, and if he can't help her brother at all. The friend asks if she has a phone and saves his number so she can call if she needs anything. He leaves, and the girl looks at her phone, worried about her brother and her friend. School starts again, and the protagonist walks into the classroom feeling out of place. Everyone stares at him because they know what happened at the beach. The boy sits at his desk, and his friend approaches, placing a hand on his shoulder. He invites him to have lunch and says that he'll pay, trying to reconnect, but the protagonist slaps his hand away and leaves the room without saying a word. He finds the girls in the hallway and walks past them without even greeting them. The friend tells Solbi not to talk to him anymore and says she can't believe he ignored her. The teacher walks into the classroom and tells everyone to sit down to begin roll call. He gets confused and calls the name of the deceased friend, making the atmosphere heavy. After that day, everyone at school completely stopped talking to the protagonist. 2 weeks later, he asks his sister to leave the house for a while again. She refuses and asks why she has to leave every time he wants to be alone. The girl says that he's been acting strange since the funeral and that she's scared of him. He pushes her out of the house, ignoring her protests and crying. The boy says that nothing is wrong and tells her to come back in 4 hours. Outside, she tries to convince herself that she needs to give him some space. She decides to stop crying and thinks that he must be exhausted from taking care of her. The girl goes to a cafe and the employees complain that she only uses the bathroom. One of them confronts her and asks why she's using the restroom without buying anything. The employee says that only paying customers can use the store's restroom. The customers recognize the girl and wonder why she's in trouble there. The employee asks if she doesn't have a home, and the other customers mock her. Suddenly, a voice calls her and she turns around, surprised by who she sees. The pink-haired girl and her brother's friend invite her to sit with them. Solbai confronts the employee and invites her for a private talk downstairs. They take her to the table and explain that they were talking about how to help Haisong. The little girl starts crying, and they comfort her, saying that everything will be okay. One of the friends asks what made Haisong act so strange all of a sudden. The sister says that he used to be nice but became mean, and doesn't let her use the bathroom. The friend realizes that he's not just picking on Solbai, and that his personality has changed. She says that she thinks it's because of the bathtub, and that he isn't sick. The girl says that he forbids her from emptying the tub and leaves notes with warnings. They get scared and wonder if he has some kind of mental issue or obsession. The sister is shocked and asks what accident they're talking about, not knowing anything. One of the girls jokes that he might have joined a cult, scaring the younger girl. She says that she wants to find out the truth and that she's relieved they haven't given up. The friend says that they've thought about it a lot and that there must be a reason for his change. He promises that they'll do their best and that the problem is whether he wants to come back. Solbai returns and brings a bunch of sweets for the protagonist's sister to eat. She explains that the employee sent the sweets as an apology to her. The friend jokes, asking for one, but Solbai says they're all for Haibin. The little girl eats happily, and everyone watches her with a smile on their faces. The friend thinks that Haibin Ses has a sister who cares about him and wonders why he acts that way. He suggests a dangerous plan, and everyone at the table agrees to try it. At school, the girls greet him and he's surprised by their attitude. The friend also greets him, and he wonders why everyone is talking to him. The teacher announces that summer is over and that some students are getting too relaxed. He calls him to the teacher's office, and the protagonist agrees, not understanding why. In the office, the teacher asks what's going on and says that he's not usually like this. He accuses him of not focusing and asks if it's because of the accident. The boy bows and apologizes, saying that it won't happen again. But the teacher yells, ordering him to come back, saying that he's not finished talking. He insults him, saying that he has no manners because he has no parents to teach him. Angry, Furia turns back and asks the teacher to repeat what he just said, leaving him scared. He says that the boy needs to try harder instead of showing his flaws. The teacher says that he also lost his father but never showed his weakness. The protagonist wonders why the teacher is so angry with him today. The man says that he needs to forget his friend's death and move on with his life. He remembers hearing something similar before but didn't feel angry at the time. The boy thinks that maybe it was because he had friends by his side, but that wasn't it. He remembers Yoon-hae and how she said that no one could understand them. With a smile, he realizes that the mermaid was right and that no one understands him. The teacher says that he's basically his guardian and that he can't talk back like that. The protagonist asks why he compares them when their lives are completely different. He accuses him of wanting to feel good by scolding a student who's struggling. The teacher trembles with anger and the protagonist says that he wishes he'd lost his father at 32. Furious, the teacher hits him with a folder, striking him right on the head. The man accuses him of being rude and goes after him, forcing another teacher to intervene. He says that he was just trying to help, but the protagonist says that's just his opinion. The teacher threatens him with his school record, but the boy doesn't care anymore. The teacher yells at him to drop out of school and threatens him, but he leaves without looking back. Back in the bathroom, he says that he went through something similar, and the mermaid comforts him. She says that she just wanted to live in peace but that others made her feel miserable. The protagonist agrees and says that he felt exactly like that on that day at school. She hugs him and he feels much better, finding comfort in her arms. He wonders why she can't stay with him forever, and the mermaid apologizes. The boy gets confused and asks what she's apologizing for now. She says that she can't comfort him and hates herself for not having that power, and she even says that maybe the best thing would be to disappear from his life for good. The protagonist asks why now, when he finally chose her and got used to her. He gets desperate and begs her not to say that, because she's the only one who understands him. Meanwhile, a cell phone in the bathroom is recording everything. In physical education class, the teacher tells everyone to find a partner to practice with. The friend calls him, but another says that he'll partner with Hai Song. He says that the protagonist isn't participating anymore, but that he should pair up with Jong Hwan. The friend asks him to be his partner, but he turns away, ignoring the invitation. He leaves the court, and the friend follows, asking where he's going. The protagonist says that he understands why they're trying to talk to him, but he says that he can't take it anymore and doesn't want their help anymore. The friend says that he was only looking for a partner and that he has other friends. He wonders if the change in attitude is because of Yoon Hwan, and the friend gets startled. Hai's sister had recorded everything and took it to the friends so they could hear what happened in the bathroom. The group wonders if they should tell his sister about what they heard in the recording, since she's still too young to understand. Solby asks who Yoon Hwan is and if there's anyone by that name at school. They find it strange that the conversation happened in the bathroom and wonder if they were smoking. The pink-haired girl wonders why he distances himself if he seems fine with Yoon Hwan. A friend suggests that they're dating and that she's the one controlling the relationship. The friend comments that her way of speaking is strange and that she changes her tone of voice. He says that she talks as if she isn't even human. The friend scolds him, and he grows thoughtful, trying to understand what's happening. Back to the present, the protagonist trembles and asks how the friend knows about Yoon Hwan. Furious, he grabs him by the collar and yells, demanding to know how he found out. The friend says that he can't breathe and he thinks that he was sacrificing himself. He thought he was protecting everyone from something terrifying, but he was wrong. The boy realizes that now he fears his friends more than the mermaid herself. He lets go of the friend, who coughs, and the protagonist looks around, worried. The boy fears that Yoon Hwan heard the conversation and doesn't know what to do. He runs away, leaving his friend behind, who calls after him, confused. In the classroom, the teacher asks who's missing, and everyone notices his absence. The friend says they haven't seen him since gym class, and the teacher gets irritated. At the end of the day, they discover that Hwan Sung never returned to school and start to worry. The girl says it was a mistake to bring up Yoon Hwan, and that the timing was terrible. The friend decides to take Hwan Sung's things to his house and talk to him later. On the way, he calls the boy's sister and asks if Hwan Sung is home. He asks if Hwan has seen her brother, and she answers, making him even more worried. On the other end of the line, the protagonist tells him never to call Hwan Hebben again. He says that he heard everything, and knows that they used his sister to record him. The boy hangs up on the friend and blocks his number so he won't receive calls anymore. He confiscates his sister's phone and tells her not to call his friends again. The scene shifts, and the friend is in art class but can't focus. He gets a call from Hai Seong's sister, but it's actually him on the line. They meet at the park so he can return the backpack that was left at school. He hands over the backpack and uniform, and the protagonist says that he came to answer one last time. His friend asks if he abandoned them because Yoon-hae is obsessed with him, but in response he says no, that he's the one obsessed with her. The friend apologizes for recording the conversation but says that she's not good for him. He says that Yoon-hae is a childhood friend and that he's known her since he was 10. The boy says that he's the only one she has and that they mean nothing to him. The friend asks if he remembers what Soonbin said before the accident. He reminds him that the friend asked him not to suffer alone and to talk with them. The friend says that many people care about him and that he doesn't need her, but the protagonist replies that she's the one who helped him when he was in trouble. He says that all of that is in the past and that it doesn't matter anymore. With a sinister smile, he says that the friend isn't here anymore and that there's no point in talking about him. The friend gets angry and punches him in the face, making him fall to the ground. Back in the bathroom, he says that someone knows about her but that he never told anyone. The mermaid says that she knows and that she heard everything that happened in their conversation. He realizes that she was watching and feels even more trapped in the situation. The boy says that she must be upset and that his friend is weird and scary. She questions him and asks why he ran away if he already knew his friend would be a problem. He apologizes and says that he was so scared he wasn't thinking straight. The mermaid asks if he doesn't care if the friend disappears, and he stares at her. She reminds him that she said anyone who bothers him needs to disappear. The protagonist gets scared and asks if she's saying that she's going to kill the friend. The mermaid asks what he thinks and what he would do to make him disappear. In shock, he asks if she means that she's going to kill him. Smiling, she says that it's actually a good idea and asks his opinion on what they could do. Back to the moment of the fight, Hai's friend asks how he could say those things. Still throwing punches, he says he can't believe he ever had someone like him as a friend. He reminds him how Soonbin cared about him and how he was a good friend. In a flashback, the friend says that he still wants to be there for him if he ever needs it. He says the problem is that Hai-sung keeps suffering alone, and that makes him nervous. The friend asks him to lean on him, or at least on the other friends who are there. He agrees and thanks him for the support, feeling a bit better after the conversation. After cleaning everything up, one of the girls says she cried so much that she needs to hug her mom. The friend is surprised that he told them everything and wonders how he became so amazing. He says that Hai-sung isn't okay and that their personalities are complete opposites. The friend asks the others to be there for him if something ever happens in the future. He says he didn't want to think that way and feels guilty for ever doubting him. The protagonist wishes it had been him who died instead of the friend who's gone. The people around separate the fight, and the friend stares at him with anger and disgust. He says he's going to ignore him and threatens him, telling him not to talk to any of them again. The protagonist is left alone, and the people nearby ask if he's okay. He doesn't remember much, but he thinks the mermaid got furious about his injuries. The boy was completely alone until graduation, with no friends to talk to. The teacher jokes, saying that the students must be happy to never see him again. He tells the students to leave because he needs to lock the classroom door. The protagonist finds a rose on his desk and is surprised by the gift. The teacher says that's enough and that their parents must be waiting outside. He turns to leave, and the teacher starts the countdown for the photo. The boy walks out of the classroom and leaves the flower behind, not caring about the gift. He hears the voice of his friend calling him to play soccer, just like old times. The protagonist walks down the empty hallway, ignoring the call of the friend who's gone. He moves forward alone, carrying the weight of his choices and his losses. He takes a train and a boat, returning to his hometown, Mole Island. He feels a bit embarrassed, but happy to be back in the place he loves. The mermaid appears in the water and waves at him with a gentle smile. He waves back and the two reunite on the island, just like the old days. In the cave, she says that she has something to show him. She asks him to close his eyes, and he asks what it is, curious about the surprise. After a moment, she tells him to open his eyes, and he sees the yellow submarine. The young man remembers that toy he left behind when he left the island. He moves toward the toy to hold it, but the mermaid doesn't let him. She hugs him and says that it's her #1 treasure and that now it belongs to her. He smiles and agrees, saying that the toy is hers forever as a gift. The mermaid says that the submarine doesn't move anymore and that maybe it's broken. He teaches her how to wind it up, and the toy starts moving in the water again. The boy is happy and laughs, feeling peaceful and content by her side. But suddenly he notices something strange on her tail and asks what happened, leaving her surprised. That's it for today, guys. I've summarized all the available chapters, but if you want the continuation, comment Mermaid Stalker, and I'll bring more as soon as it's released. Don't forget to leave a like, it really helps our videos reach more people. See you next time.